failed to act. 2021-2020 revised national budget presented adjusted to 2.3 trillion kwacha. Stalemate on risk allowance demand by teachers. Divisions rock the profession. African Leadership Magazine confers 2020 Peace and Security Award to Malawian Army Commander General Nundwe. Now the news in detail. We begin with stories on the 6.2 billion kwacha COVID gate, where this week ending, the Human Rights Defenders Coalition hinted on mobilizing the citizenry for nationwide demonstrations should government fail to act convincingly on alleged abuse of 6.2 billion kwacha meant for COVID-19 response. Chairperson for the body, Gift Trappings, said at a media briefing in Lilongwe that through its whistleblowing initiative, HRDC has received overwhelming evidence on alleged abuse of the funds. We had this report from Winston Kaimira, who was at the briefing.
In a statement read by National Coordinator Luke Tembo, HRDC demands declaration of allowances received by Presidential Task Force members and information on procurement of goods and services for the COVID-19 response. The body alleges that no security patrols in border posts have been conducted in enforcement of COVID-19 preventive measures, yet 150 million kwacha was allocated for the task. HRDC further faults the payout of allowances to Leader of Opposition Kwagwanji Nkhani, saying the money he received could have been used for procurement of oxygen cylinders.
Allegations of corruption and fraud. What we are calling upon as HRDC is to a total accountability on the funds. We've received quite a number of tip-offs from Malawians alleging that the monies were misused. We are calling upon the audit in 1 month, and upon receiving the audit, we are going to launch a Pay Back Our Money campaign should the audit find that there have been abuse of funds. But before that, we are also calling upon the government to release the reports that all the clusters submitted during the last meeting that the task force had with the task force on COVID-19.
Chairperson for the body, Gift Trappings, says reports which were presented to the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 need to be made public. He further said HRDC gave Leader of Opposition in Parliament, Kwagwanji Nkhani, ultimatum to return to government allowances he received, and that he is now remaining with 3 days. The body warned that it shall take unspecified action should the Leader of Opposition ignore the demand. Meanwhile, HRDC says it will organize protests should a 1-month financial audit on the alleged abuse of funds yield no tangible results. Reporting for Zodiak in Lilongwe, this is Winston Kaimira.
In a twist of events, the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 on Thursday ordered all local councils and clusters to return funds meant for COVID-19 fight recently received from government. Co-chairperson for the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, Dr. Wilfred Jalamira Nkoma, also directed the councils to immediately stop spending their allocated resources and transfer the funds back to DODMA's account. The councils were told to submit their itemized activity plans by Friday on how they intend to use their allocations to DODMA for the committee to have consolidated plans. Adam Zundaninge gave us this report.
Recently, government disbursed millions of kwacha to local councils to assist in the procurement of cross-face masks, a move which was touted by many as a step in the right direction in containing further spread of COVID-19 pandemic. Now, the Department of Disaster and Management Affairs has paid all councils and clusters to immediately stop spending the allocated resources and that the respective funds should be transferred to DODMA account. This follows resolutions made by the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 during the meeting held at Bingo International Convention Center in Lilongwe on Tuesday this week. The councils have also been requested to submit their itemized activity plans on how they intend to spend their allocations. Malawi Health Equity Network Executive Director George Jobe has backed the move, saying it will help the committee to properly scrutinize itemized activity plans before transferring the money to councils.
The councils must first of all submit their plans, which should be scrutinized to see whether they make sense and whatever advice must be given before funds are transferred. This is in a view of we suspected the misuse of the 6.2 billion budget.
Several officers from Dodma have been arrested, with district commissioners and chief executive officers interdicted for failure to account for 6.2 billion Malawi Kwacha COVID funds. Reporting for ZBS News, this is Adams Clement Undaning.
Still on COVID-19 issues, but now on risk allowances, where this week there was a stalemate between teachers and government after government announced it will not meet the demand by the teachers to start getting risk allowances. This meant prolonged work boycott for the teachers. However, divisions later emerged at the end of the week as the Teachers Mother Body Teachers Union of Malawi, TUM, asked the teachers to return to work when others were in disagreement. On Thursday, TUM Vice President Rehama Harid announced that the industrial action has been called off. But in an interview with Zodiak Friday, TUM President Willie Malimba said the decision to call off the strike is illegal, arguing the union president and secretary have not approved it. Andrew Viano Fado report.
Cracks have emerged in the Teachers Body Teachers Union of Malawi as a group of teachers has called off sitting to pave way for dialogue with government, while another stands its ground to continue with the industrial action until government addresses the contentious issue of risk allowance. The division follows government's decision not to include teachers for provision of COVID-19 risk allowance. TUM President Willie Malimba has told us that the decision to call off strike is illegal, as the constitution of the teachers' body states that only him and secretary can make such decisions, contrary to what happened Thursday.
I'm not endorsing my signature. In TUM, we have a constitution. The constitution is clearly saying that letters of such type should be signed by the Secretary General and the President. I was the one to sign that one because the Secretary General is not around. On my side, I'm saying the strike has not been suspended. We gather together and make agreement together.
Malawi Congress of Trade Union MCT General Secretary Dennis Kalekeni has since called on TUM leadership to put their house in order if they have to make bargaining power on their demands.
And let the leadership address their challenges, address their differences. One other thing that I must be quick to come in is that when you are dealing with issues of labor, when we are dealing with issues of industrial actions, there must always be a clear message that is coming out, outside any political inclination and any political influence.
Education expert Benedicto Kondowe has since called on government to put their hands off TUM leadership, as that will affect education in the country.
I believe that such concession should be willful. It should not be imposed, because that undermines the human rights that entities have within the freedom of association and freedom of expression. So we are very, very worried because the current developments at TUM are sending a very bad signal.
Schools in the country were reopened Monday after a 5-week suspension caused by a surge in COVID-19 cases.
In Parliament this week ending, the Minister of Finance presented a revised budget of 2020-2021 fiscal year on Friday morning. The budget is now pegged at 2.3 trillion kwacha. That's up from 2.1 trillion kwacha. The budget has been adjusted upwards with 144 billion kwacha. Our Kuta was in Parliament.
In September 2020, the Tonse Alliance administration presented its first national budget, which was pegged at 2.1 trillion kwacha. 6 months down the line, time has come for members of parliament to review the budget, which has now been adjusted upwards with 144 billion kwacha. Presenting the revised budget Friday morning, Finance Minister Felix Mlusu attributed the increase to some unforeseen circumstances, such as the 17 billion kwacha COVID-19 funds, 4.5 billion kwacha meant for re-administering of fresh MSCE exams, and the 7 billion kwacha legal fees for the 2019 presidential election case. However, besides the country sailing through some COVID-19 effects, Mlusu said government has managed to collect about 96% in tax revenue, projected at 5.7 billion kwacha in the first half of the 2020-2021 fiscal year.
We found, some areas where there was very pressing in excess of, 5 billion. So all these, put together, and they were not in the budget. These are the ones that have affected our need to revise the budget.
DPP parliamentary spokesperson on finance, Joseph Mwanamveka, has since described the budget as conceptual and not giving hope to Malawians.
It depends on COVID-19. It also depends on the donor support that we get. If you don't get donor support, it also affects the foreign exchange reserves. And if you don't get that, it means also the exchange rate will not be able to stabilize the economy.
Members of Parliament are expected to review all allocations to state agencies and ministries before passing it for use in the remaining 6 months of the 2020-2021 fiscal year. Reporting for Zodiak, this is Western Guta.
Still with Parliament issues, this week ending, Minister of Energy Newton Kambala told legislators that the Electricity Supply Corporation of Malawi, ESCOM, needs about 5 billion kwacha to connect new customers who already paid to be connected to the national power grid. The minister indicated that financial challenges have led to ESCOM's failure to connect scores of customers who paid for the services from 2017. He said the ministry has engaged Treasury for a possible financial bailout and developed a master plan to address challenges in provision of electricity. Winston Kaimira was there.
When answering questions from some legislators in Parliament, Minister of Energy Newton Kambala said it is lamentable that this country remains behind on access to electricity as only 11% of people are connected. He said government plans to raise the percentage to 70% through various interventions. The minister said only 41% of residents have access to electricity in Lilongwe, despite being the country's capital city. He said financial challenges are preventing the Electricity Supply Corporation of Malawi, ESCOM, from making new connections. The minister said through a special initiative, his ministry has instructed ESCOM to ensure 80% of people waiting to be connected are assisted by June this year. He said for this to be achieved, his ministry has engaged Treasury requesting for funds.
A lot of customers paid for connection, but they are struggling to get them connected because they don't have capacity to buy materials. And we came in as a ministry to assist in finding some funds. And we rolled out a project in January this year, which is last month, to make sure that by end of June, all these customers are connected. If not all, but at least 80% of them are connected.
Kambala has since disclosed that his ministry has instructed ESCOM to cover all earthing cables with concrete blocks to deal with vandalism. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Energy continues reaching out to people in rural areas with electricity connectivity through the Malawi Rural Electrification Program, MAREP. This is Winston Kaimira for Zodiac in Lilongwe.
And now let's go to politics. DPP regional governors from 4 regions have demanded an apology from Kwagwanji Nkhani for allegedly sponsoring thuggery. Speaking at a news press conference in Mangoji, the governors have given the leader of opposition 7 days. DPP regional governor for Eastern Region, Imran Mtenje, says failing this, Nkhani or his agents will not be allowed to conduct meetings under the DPP banner. We spoke to Ntenje.
So we are saying since 2018, just last year, and this year too, and you remember last Friday, our senior members of the party were beaten by boys who were purportedly sent by him, as you might have heard or might have seen in the social media what people are discussing or sharing. So we are saying that we are giving an ultimatum to him that being one of the party senior members, vice president of the southern region, and perpetrating violence, we are saying that we can't accept as a party. We can't move on like that as a party. So we are saying he should come forward and apologize for having sent boys to put the party into disrepute.
Later, police in Lilongwe arrested Alex Mawaya for allegedly assaulting DPP Administrative Secretary Francis Mpepo and spokesperson Brown Mbinganjira at Crown Hotel last week. Mawaya is said to be in a company of suspected DPP youths who disrupted a press conference organized by the attacked officials. The party then expelled him and another youth member, Alex Chimwala. You're watching the news. This is This Week in the News on Zodiac. We'll be back with more news after this.
Bliss Body Lotion is well refined to give your skin full hydration, leaving you feeling fresh throughout the day. Bliss Body Lotion is a top-range body lotion which contains natural extracts and is found in 3 flavors at a very reasonable price. Bliss Lotion Aloe Vera. Bliss Lotion Instant Hydration. Bliss Lotion for men. Get yourself Bliss Body Lotion today in all leading stores across the country.
To achieve great things in life, you must do little things every day, like the 1, 2, 3 with Colgate.
1, wake up, wake up. 2, brush up, brush up. 3, smile through your day with a fresh breath and strong tea. Smile through your day with a fresh breath and strong tea.
Do the 1, 2, 3 with Colgate and give yourself a future to smile about.
Kodi dekoda yanu ya Go TV nthawi zina imatawa machannel kapena sabwera konse. Musadere nkhawa, tsatani ndondomeko izi kuti mupange forced software upgrade. Choyamba, zimitsani dekoda yanu ndipo ichotseni kumagetsi. Kenako, yatsani dekoda yanu ukumukutsimikiza button la P+. Musalisiye buttonilo mpaka pamwamba pakanema wanu paoneke mawu oti core. Zikatele, tsindikizani button la P- katatu. Kenako, P+ kamodzi. Mawu oti code adzathwanima kawiri. Tsindikizani P+ kuti mutsimikize kodiyo. Kanema wanu adzathima mwakamphindi ndi kuyakanso. Kenako dekoda yanu iyamba kupanga upgrade software. Ikamaliza, mupeza machannel onse abwera. Go TV. Love it.
If there's one thing that all soaps do, it's wash. From buckets to basins, bathrooms to streams, and everything in between.
All soaps wash.
Yes, but Protex is different. Its reinvented formula with flaxseed oil boosts your skin's natural anti-germ defenses by 10 times more, protecting you against 99.9% of germs. So what keeps us healthy?
Protex!
Good health starts here.
ShopRite has always been here for you, and our promise to bring you low prices when what you need most will never change. Get 2 liters Malawi cooking oil on a 2,649 kwacha 99 tambala, and 400 grams Nestle Nido milk powder on a 3,699 kwacha 99 tambala. We are also doing the best we can to ensure that you have a safe shopping experience. So be sure to follow all safety protocols in store. ShopRite, lower prices you can trust, always.
I'm a mechanical engineer and I lead teams. Studying for a PhD with UNICAF University has improved my leadership skills. I can apply everything I learned at my workplace. The teams I lead now are the best. With my tight schedule and heavy workload, there is no other way I could have earned a PhD. Thanks to UNICAF University. Soon, I'll be Dr. Conceptor.
Welcome back. Before we continue with the news, let's take another look at the top stories. HRDC to mobilize nationwide demonstrations on COVID-19 funds gate should government fail to act. 2020-2021 revised national budget presented, adjusted to 2.3 trillion kwacha. Stalemate on risk allowance demand by teachers, divisions rock the profession. African Leadership Magazine confers 2020 Peace and Security Award to Malawian Army Commander General Nundwe. Now let's move on with the news to food security issues. This week ending, the Agriculture Development and Marketing Corporation ADMAC announced that the parastatal will purchase 1.1 million metric tons of maize this year. Its board chairperson Alexander Kusambadzonzi told reporters in Blantyre that funds for purchasing the maize and revitalizing the institution have already been identified. Zonzi said the Tonse Alliance-led administration would like to bring ADMAC back to the farmer with no political interference. Zonzi explains.
We are being led by a politician with huge integrity, the current president, the vice president, and very honorable ministers, Minister of Finance, Minister of Agriculture, just to mention a few. We believe that these are not going to sell their integrity. We believe that these are not going to compromise and throw under the bus the very voters who put them in office, and these are smallholder farmers. And because of that trust and the assurances that the president himself has given this board, we believe that the current ADMAC will not experience any political interference. Suffice for me to sum as follows. There is a political will from our president to insulate ADMAC from any political interference. For the first time, ADMAC is going to buy 1.1 million metric tons of maize from the smallholder farmers. And we have already secured funding for that. It's about $134 million. Our vision is simple. We are taking back ADMAC to the smallholder farmers.
In business news, on Wednesday, government announced that the two state-of-the-art industrial parks in Lilongwe and Blantyre that have passed feasibility studies are expected to cost 1.5 trillion kwacha. Director of Industry in the Ministry of Trade, Clement Panga, said the projects to commence next year are expected to create about 2,000 jobs once completed. Government has since engaged the Export Development Fund, which is working with African Import and Export Bank to attract investors for the projects. Steve Zimba reports.
In Lilongwe, the industrial park will be constructed in Area 55 after Maguero Primary School, few kilometers away from Kamuzu International Airport, and in Blantyre, government has secured land for the project at Matindi area close to Lunzu along the M1 road. But how essential are upcoming projects to Malawian development? Director of Industry in the Ministry of Trade is Clement Panga.
The projects that are coming up are very essential. They are actually going to drive transformation, and they are in line with the country's Malawi 2063 vision, which talks about transforming the country using agriculture, industrialization, but also urbanization. So these are projects that will create jobs. They are projects that will turn around the issues of exports, because there will be processing happening in there. And they are projects that will also transform the ambience of our urban areas and peri-urban areas.
Construction works for the first phase of the two economic zones will take 2 years to complete. Government's Export Development Fund is working with African Import and Export Bank to attract investors to the projects. Managing Director of the fund, Gerard Msomba, is outlining current state of both projects.
The work that they have done in terms of producing feasibility studies, business plans, and also overall project preparation is showing that we are going to attract massive investment into the parks. This will make sure that our manufacturing accelerates.
Major activities of the projects include agro-processing, information and communication technology, to mention but a few. For Zodiak, this is Steve Zimba reporting.
Let's now move to sports. During the week, the Malawi National Council of Sports demanded a 4-year financial report from Netball Association of Malawi, as the body continues to be allocated close to 200 million kwacha every year from government. Sports Council's Chief Executive Officer Henry Mereka told us the netball governing body has also been advised to produce expenditures for the Presidential Initiative on Sports. The council has given NAM until next month before it conducts its elective convention. Sambanda gave us this report.
Mereka says the financial report is of paramount importance because it will give the netball governing body the backing for further government allocation and is amongst the key reforms which NAM will have to adapt towards achieving effective financial prudence. For the last 4 years, according to Mereka, the Netball Association of Malawi has been receiving an annual allocation of about 200 million kwacha for activities such as grassroots development, organizing local competitions, as well as catering for Malawi Queen's assignments, and this is the money which the current administration has to account for before the forthcoming elective convention next month. This year's allocation for the Presidential Netball Cup, which is part of the Presidential Initiative on Sports, is still intact following the suspension of activities due to COVID-19, but Mereka says a report for the previous expenditures will also be needed.
We have been on the process of trying to instill the financial discipline. Once we have that financial discipline, that's when we shall be able to have value for money and utilize the monies that we have to the maximum. So Council has always been allocating 200 million to netball. This has always been the case looking at their programs, because this kind of feedback is very important and their affiliates will be able to appreciate and contribute. That would actually bring in the financial prudence. So it is very important.
The Netball Association of Malawi is yet to announce the exact date for its elective convention, awaiting Sports Council's guidance on the number of delegates with the 50 people per gathering law in use.
And that's about what we had time for in this edition of This Week in the News. Before we go, a recap of the top stories. HRDC to mobilize nationwide demonstrations on COVID-19 gate should government fail to act. 2020-2021 revised national budget presented, adjusted to 2.3 trillion kwacha. Stalemate on risk allowance demand by teachers. Divisions rock the profession. African Leadership magazine confers 2020 Peace and Security Award to Malawi's Defense Force Commander, General Nundwe. Visit our website, zodiacmalawi.com, for more news. My name is Job Frank Chakaza. Now remember to wash hands regularly with soap to contain the spread of COVID-19. Goodbye.
Get all the latest news from the trusted source online. We have the most shared local news on our website. And we have a vast following on Facebook and Twitter. Subscribe, follow, like. Zodiac Online, the only local trusted source on the network.